What if I told you that the advice you've been following for decades to manage your blood pressure might actually be making things worse? I know that sounds controversial. I know that might even sound a little bit crazy. But a study published just 6 weeks ago in the Journal of the American Heart Association has sent shockwaves through the medical community. Researchers followed over 12,000 adults aged 60 and older for 3 years, and what they discovered challenges everything we thought we knew about diet and blood pressure. For years, maybe even decades, you've probably heard the same advice over and over again. Cut the salt, take your medication, maybe exercise a little more. And look, that advice isn't necessarily wrong, but here's what nobody told you. There are 3 specific foods that you probably walk past every single week at the grocery store, that have been shown to reduce blood pressure by an average of 15 points in just 14 days. 15 points in 2 weeks, without adding a single new medication. I'm Dr. Evelyn Moore. I've been practicing internal medicine for over 27 years, and I've spent the last 15 of those years specializing in cardiovascular health for adults over 60. I've seen thousands of patients walk through my door, frustrated, scared, confused about why their numbers won't come down no matter what they try. And I'm going to be honest with you. For a long time, I was giving them the same recycled advice that wasn't getting results either. But today, I'm going to share with you exactly what those 3 foods are, why they work on a biological level, and how you can start incorporating them into your diet as early as tomorrow morning. This information has the potential to change your life. I've seen it change my patients' lives. But before I reveal exactly what those 3 foods are, you need to understand why the conventional approach has been failing so many people. And to explain that, I need to tell you about Margaret. Margaret was 72 years old when she first came to see me, retired school teacher, grandmother of 4, the kind of woman who spent her whole life taking care of everyone else. You know the type. Maybe you are that type. Margaret had been dealing with high blood pressure for almost 15 years by the time she walked into my office. 15 years. And she had done everything right. At least, everything she had been told was right. She looked at me from across my desk that first day, and I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Not just physical exhaustion, though there was plenty of that. It was something deeper. It was the exhaustion of trying so hard and feeling like you're failing anyway. "Dr. Moore," she said to me, "I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I've cut my salt intake to almost nothing. I take my blood pressure medication every single morning at 7 a.m. sharp. I walk around my neighborhood 3 times a week. I've given up so many foods I used to love." She paused and looked down at her hands. "My doctor keeps increasing my dosage, and my numbers just won't budge. Last week it was 158/94. I'm scared. I'm going to have a stroke like my mother did." I asked Margaret to walk me through a typical day of eating, and here's where things got interesting. Her breakfast was usually plain oatmeal with skim milk and maybe half a banana. Lunch was a salad with grilled chicken, no dressing because she was worried about the sodium. Dinner was often baked fish with steamed vegetables, no seasoning except maybe a squeeze of lemon. She had essentially eliminated anything she thought might be contributing to her blood pressure problems, and that, right there, was the issue. Margaret had been so focused on what to remove from her diet that nobody had ever told her what she needed to ADD. She was essentially nutritionally deficient in 3 key compounds that her blood vessels desperately needed to function properly. Her arteries were starving for specific nutrients, and no amount of salt restriction was going to fix that. "Margaret," I said, leaning forward in my chair, "I think I know what's going on, and I think we can fix this. But I need you to trust me, because what I'm about to suggest might sound counterintuitive to everything you've been told." She looked at me with a mixture of hope and skepticism. I didn't blame her for the skepticism. She'd been let down before. "I'm going to ask you to ADD 3 specific foods to your daily routine," I continued. "Not instead of your medication, not instead of your healthy habits, in addition to them, and I want to see you back here in 2 weeks. Margaret agreed, though I could tell she wasn't entirely convinced. Honestly, part of me wasn't entirely convinced either. I had seen the research, I believed in the science, but this was the first time I was applying this specific protocol with a real patient. I hoped I wasn't giving her false hope. 2 weeks later, Margaret walked back into my office. And I will never forget the look on her face. Before she even sat down, before I could even pull up her chart, she grabbed my hands and said, "Dr. Moore, I checked my blood pressure this morning, 132/84. I had to ask her to repeat it, 132/84. That was a drop of 26 points on her systolic reading in just 14 days. No medication change, no dramatic lifestyle overhaul, just 3 foods, consistently, every single day. Now I'm going to tell you exactly what those 3 foods are and why they work so remarkably well. But I want to pause here for just a moment. If you're watching this video and you've been struggling with your blood pressure, if you felt that same frustration that Margaret felt, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me how long you've been dealing with blood pressure issues. 1 year? 5 years? 20 years? I read every single comment, and knowing your story helps me create content that actually serves you. So please, take 2 seconds and share your experience. All right, now let's talk about why conventional blood pressure advice has been incomplete. And I want to be clear here. I'm not saying your doctor has been wrong. I'm saying the information has been incomplete. There's a difference. Your doctor is working with the information they have, and unfortunately, medical education often lags behind the latest research by years, sometimes even decades. So let me explain what's actually happening in your body when your blood pressure is high, because once you understand this, everything else I'm about to tell you will make perfect sense. Think of your blood vessels like garden hoses. When you're young and healthy, those hoses are soft, flexible, and they expand and contract easily with each heartbeat. Blood flows through smoothly, and the pressure stays in a healthy range. But as we age, and as certain nutrients become depleted, those hoses start to get stiff. They lose their elasticity. They can't expand the way they used to. Now imagine you're trying to push the same amount of water through a hose that's become rigid and narrow. What happens? The pressure goes up. You have to push harder to get the same amount of water through. That's essentially what's happening with your blood pressure. Your heart is having to work harder and harder to push blood through vessels that have lost their flexibility. Here's where it gets interesting. There are 3 specific biological mechanisms that control how flexible your blood vessels stay as you age, and most people over 60 are deficient in the nutrients that support all 3 of these mechanisms. The first mechanism involves something called nitric oxide. Now, don't let the technical term scare you. Nitric oxide is simply a molecule that your body produces naturally, and its job is to tell your blood vessels to relax and dilate. When you have plenty of nitric oxide, your vessels stay soft and open. When you're deficient, they constrict and stiffen. Studies show that nitric oxide production decreases by about 75% between age 25 and age 70. 75%. That's a massive drop, and it's happening to almost everyone. The second mechanism involves the mineral potassium and its relationship with sodium. Now, you've probably heard that sodium, or salt, is bad for blood pressure. And that's partially true. But here's what you might not know. It's not really about how much sodium you consume. It's about the ratio of sodium to potassium in your diet. Your body needs both, and they work together in a delicate balance. The problem is that the modern diet is extremely high in sodium and extremely low in potassium. We've got the ratio completely backwards, and when that ratio is off, your kidneys can't regulate fluid balance properly, and your blood pressure rises. The third mechanism involves inflammation in the blood vessel walls. This is a big one, and it's often overlooked. When there's chronic low-grade inflammation in your arteries, the vessel walls become damaged and scarred over time. That scarring makes them stiff and narrow. It's like the difference between a brand new rubber band and one that's been left in the sun for years. The old rubber band is cracked, stiff, and doesn't stretch anymore. That's what inflammation does to your blood vessels over time. Now here's the critical point, and I want you to really let this sink in. If you're only focusing on reducing sodium, if you're only taking medication to forcibly lower your pressure, you're not addressing any of these three root causes. You're treating the symptom without fixing the underlying problem. It's like putting a piece of tape over the warning light on your car dashboard. Sure, you can't see the light anymore, but the engine is still having problems. This is why so many people like Margaret, can do everything right and still not see results. They're fighting with one hand tied behind their back because they don't have the nutritional building blocks their body needs to actually heal. All right, I've made you wait long enough. Let's talk about the three foods that address all three of these mechanisms and why the research on them is so compelling. The first food is raw beets. Now, before you make a face, hear me out. Beets are quite possibly the most powerful natural blood pressure reducer that exists, and there's hard science to back this up. A study published in the journal Hypertension followed participants who drank just 1 cup of beet juice daily. Within 3 hours, I said 3 hours, their blood pressure dropped by an average of 10 points, and the effect lasted for up to 24 hours. The reason beets work so well is that they're extraordinarily high in natural nitrates, which your body converts directly into nitric oxide, that molecule I mentioned earlier that tells your blood vessels to relax and open up. But here's what makes this even more remarkable for adults over 60. Remember how I said nitric oxide production drops by 75% as we age? Beets essentially bypass that problem. Instead of relying on your body to produce nitric oxide from scratch, you're giving it the raw materials to make it directly. It's like the difference between asking a factory with broken machinery to build something from nothing versus giving them pre-assembled parts. Now, you don't have to drink beet juice if you don't like it. You can eat roasted beets, you can shred raw beets into salads, you can even find beet powder that you can add to smoothies. The key is getting the equivalent of about 1 medium-sized beet per day. The second food is leafy greens, and I'm talking specifically about spinach, arugula, and Swiss chard. These vegetables are nutritional powerhouses for blood pressure, and they work through multiple pathways. First, they're also high in nitrates, like beets, so they support nitric oxide production. But more importantly, leafy greens are absolutely loaded with potassium. 1 cup of cooked spinach contains over 800 milligrams of potassium. That's almost 20% of what you need in a day from just 1 cup. When you increase your potassium intake, you help restore that critical sodium to potassium ratio I mentioned earlier. Your kidneys can start functioning optimally again, flushing out excess sodium and fluid, and your pressure naturally comes down. There's also a third benefit to leafy greens that often gets overlooked. They're rich in magnesium, which is another mineral that most people over 60 are deficient in. Magnesium helps your blood vessel walls relax. It's literally a natural muscle relaxant, and your blood vessels have smooth muscle in their walls. When you're deficient in magnesium, those muscles stay tense and constricted. When you have enough, they can finally relax. The research on leafy greens is extensive. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, which combined data from multiple studies involving over 200,000 participants, found that people who ate just 1 serving of leafy greens per day had significantly lower rates of hypertension and cardiovascular disease compared to those who rarely ate them. The third food might surprise you. It's fatty fish, specifically salmon, mackerel, and sardines. Now, you might be thinking, wait, I thought fish was good for cholesterol, not blood pressure. And you'd be partially right. But the omega-3 fatty acids in fatty fish do something remarkable for blood pressure that most people don't know about. They directly reduce inflammation in the blood vessel walls. Remember that third mechanism I talked about, the chronic inflammation that damages and stiffens your arteries over time? Omega-3 fatty acids are among the most powerful natural anti-inflammatories that exist. They don't just reduce inflammation in general, they specifically target the type of inflammation that affects blood vessels. A study published in the American Journal of Hypertension found that participants who consumed fatty fish 3 times per week saw an average blood pressure reduction of 8 to 10 points over 8 weeks. But here's what's really interesting. When they combined fish consumption with increased vegetable intake, the effects were amplified. The nutrients worked together synergistically, meaning the combined effect was greater than what you'd expect from adding up the individual effects. This is why these three foods work so well together. Beets boost nitric oxide production. Leafy greens restore potassium balance and provide magnesium for vessel relaxation. Fatty fish reduces the inflammation that causes long-term damage. You're addressing all three root causes simultaneously. Now, I want to share a few more stories with you because I think it's important for you to see that Margaret's experience wasn't a fluke. These results are reproducible. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert was 68 years old, a retired engineer, very analytical mind. He came to me skeptical about everything. He told me straight up, "Dr. Moore, I don't believe in natural remedies. I think most of it is wishful thinking." And you know what? I respected that skepticism. It's healthy to question things. I told Robert, "Look, you don't have to believe me. Just try it for 2 weeks and let the numbers speak for themselves. If it doesn't work, you've lost nothing but 2 weeks of eating some healthy food." He agreed to that. Robert's starting blood pressure was 146/90. Not dangerously high, but definitely elevated, and his doctor was already talking about adding a second medication. Robert incorporated the three foods exactly as I suggested. 1 small beet in a morning smoothie, a large salad with spinach and arugula at lunch, salmon or sardines 3 times per week for dinner. When Robert came back after 2 weeks, his blood pressure was 128/82. He sat in my office, staring at the reading like he didn't believe it. He made me take it again. Same result. Then he asked to use his own home monitor, the one he trusted. 129/83. "I don't understand," he said. "How is this possible? I've been on medication for 5 years and never got a reading this good." Here's what I told Robert, and it's what I want you to understand too. Medication forces your blood pressure down. It's like putting pressure on a spring to compress it. The moment you release that pressure, the spring pops back up. But when you give your body the nutrients it needs to heal, you're actually changing the structure of the spring itself. You're making it more flexible, less compressed naturally. That's a fundamentally different approach, and it produces fundamentally different results. Let me share one more story, because this one illustrates an important point about consistency. Patricia was 75, a former nurse, so she had more medical knowledge than most of my patients. She understood the science behind what I was suggesting, and she was excited to try it. But Patricia had a problem that many of you might relate to. She was a caretaker for her husband, who had early-stage dementia, and her days were chaotic and unpredictable. She often forgot to eat regular meals, let alone specific foods. The first 2 weeks, Patricia tried the protocol, but was inconsistent. Some days she'd have all 3 foods, other days she'd forget entirely. Her blood pressure dropped a little bit, maybe 5 or 6 points, but nothing dramatic. I sat down with her and we problem-solved together. We came up with a system. She would prep beet smoothies in advance and freeze them in individual portions. She would keep pre-washed leafy greens in a container at the front of her refrigerator where she'd see them every time she opened the door. She would stock canned sardines in her pantry for the days when cooking salmon felt like too much effort. With these systems in place, Patricia was able to be consistent, and her results reflected that. After another 4 weeks, her blood pressure went from 154/92 down to 134/84, a 20-point drop on the systolic reading. The lesson from Patricia's experience is that these foods only work if you actually eat them consistently. Knowing about them isn't enough. You need to create systems and habits that make consistency easy, especially if you have a busy or unpredictable life. Now I want to ask you something, and I really do want you to participate because this helps me help you. After hearing about these 3 foods, which one do you think would be the hardest for you to incorporate consistently? Is it the beets because you don't like the taste? Is it the leafy greens because you find salads boring? Or is it the fatty fish because you're not sure how to prepare it? Comment below and tell me which one seems like the biggest challenge for you. I'll personally try to respond with tips and suggestions. All right, let's get practical. I want to give you a specific action plan that you can start implementing tomorrow. Not next week, not next month, tomorrow. Here's your daily protocol for the next 14 days. In the morning, within an hour of waking up, you're going to consume the equivalent of one small to medium beet. The easiest way to do this is to make a simple smoothie. Take half a cup of frozen berries, one small raw beet cut into chunks, a handful of spinach, and 1 cup of water or unsweetened almond milk. Blend it for about 60 seconds. The berries mask the earthy taste of the beet, and you're getting both your beets and some of your leafy greens in one easy step. This whole process takes about 3 minutes. If you really can't do smoothies, you can buy pre-cooked beets that are vacuum-packed and eat them as a side dish. Some people even like them cold, sliced on top of toast with a little cream cheese. Find what works for you, but get that beet in. For lunch, you're going to have what I call a power salad. Start with at least 2 cups of mixed leafy greens. Spinach, arugula, and Swiss chard are ideal, but any dark leafy green will work. Add whatever vegetables you like, some protein like grilled chicken or chickpeas, and a simple dressing of olive oil and lemon juice. This gives you another big serving of potassium-rich greens, plus healthy fats that help you absorb the nutrients better. For dinner, 3 times per week, you're going to include fatty fish. Salmon is the easiest, and you can bake it in the oven in about 15 minutes with minimal effort. But if salmon feels expensive or complicated, canned sardines or mackerel work just as well nutritionally. You can put sardines on whole grain crackers, mix them into pasta, or eat them straight from the can if you're not fussy. The other 4 nights per week, eat whatever protein you normally would. Now, here's something important. Do not stop your blood pressure medication without talking to your doctor first. This is not medical advice to replace your current treatment. This is information to supplement what you're already doing. If you see significant improvements, schedule an appointment with your doctor and show them your readings. They may decide to adjust your medication based on your progress, but that's a decision for you and your doctor to make together. I also want you to measure your blood pressure every day during these 2 weeks, at the same time each day. Morning is usually best before you eat or have coffee. Write down the numbers. This serves 2 purposes. First, it lets you track your progress and see if this is working for you. Second, it gives you data to show your doctor. Doctors love data. It makes the conversation much more productive. Here are some signs that the protocol is working. Within the first 3 to 5 days, you might notice that you feel slightly more energetic. This is the nitric oxide improving blood flow to your brain and muscles. Within the first week, you might start seeing your blood pressure readings trend downward, though there may be day-to-day fluctuations. By the end of 2 weeks, you should see a clear and consistent improvement if you've been truly consistent with the foods. Here are some warning signs to watch for. If at any point you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or faint, especially when standing up quickly, your blood pressure may be dropping too low, particularly if you're on medication. This is actually a good problem to have in some ways, because it means the protocol is working powerfully. But you need to talk to your doctor about potentially adjusting your medication dosage. Also, if you have kidney disease, please talk to your doctor before significantly increasing your potassium intake. The same goes for if you're on blood thinners and considering adding lots of leafy greens which are high in vitamin K. These aren't reasons not to try this approach, but they are reasons to have a conversation with your healthcare provider first. Let me take a moment to address something that I think is really important. Some of you watching this might be feeling frustrated or even a little angry. You might be thinking, why didn't anyone tell me this before? Why has my doctor been focused only on medication and salt restriction when there's all this research about food? And I understand that frustration. I really do. But I want to encourage you to direct that energy somewhere productive. Don't be angry at your doctor. They're doing their best with the information they have and the limited time they get with each patient. The healthcare system isn't set up for doctors to spend 30 minutes discussing nutrition with every person who has high blood pressure. It's not right, but it's the reality. Instead, be empowered. You now have information that many people don't have. You have the ability to take an active role in your health, to be a partner with your doctor rather than just a passive recipient of treatment. That's powerful. That's something to be grateful for, not angry about. And here's what I've seen happen many times. Patients come back to their doctors with improved numbers and a clear explanation of what they changed. The doctor gets curious. They learn something new, and then they start sharing that information with other patients. You can be part of that ripple effect. Your success can help other people you'll never even meet. Let me tell you something that I wish someone had told me 20 years ago when I started practicing medicine. Your body wants to be healthy. It's not working against you. When your blood pressure is high, that's not your body failing. That's your body sending you a signal that something is out of balance. It's asking for help. And when you give it what it needs, when you provide those missing nutrients, it responds, often faster and more dramatically than you'd expect. Margaret is 74 now. It's been 2 years since she first walked into my office with those exhausted eyes and that blood pressure of 158/94. Her blood pressure has been stable at around 125/80 for over 18 months now. Her doctor actually reduced her medication dosage because she didn't need as much anymore. But more importantly than the numbers, Margaret feels good. She has energy to play with her grandchildren. She's not waking up every morning with that vague sense of dread, wondering if today's the day something terrible happens. She told me recently, "Dr. Moore, I feel like I got my life back." That's what I want for you, not just lower numbers on a machine, though those matter. I want you to feel good. I want you to wake up with energy and optimism. I want you to stop feeling like you're fighting a losing battle against your own body. And I genuinely believe that's possible for most people watching this video. Now here's what I need from you. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button. I know it seems like a small thing, but it actually makes a huge difference in helping this video reach other people who need this information. There are millions of seniors out there struggling with blood pressure, frustrated, scared, not knowing that there's another approach they haven't tried. Your like helps them find this video. If you want more content like this, practical health information for adults over 60 backed by real science, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you get notified when I post new videos. I release new content every single week on topics that matter to your health and longevity. And finally, if you know someone who's struggling with high blood pressure, a spouse, a sibling, a friend, please share this video with them. Send them the link. Watch it together. Having a support partner when you're making dietary changes makes success so much more likely. Before you go, I have one more thing to share. In my next video, I'm going to talk about another topic that I think is going to surprise a lot of people. There's a common breakfast food, something that millions of seniors eat every single morning, believing it's healthy, that has been shown in recent research to actually raise blood pressure over time. I'll reveal exactly what that food is, explain the science behind why it's problematic, and give you healthier alternatives that won't compromise your cardiovascular health. You're not going to want to miss that one. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your attention. And most importantly, thank you for taking your health seriously enough to seek out information like this. It matters. You matter. Remember, always consult with your personal healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet or medication regimen. What I've shared today is educational information, not personalized medical advice. Your doctor knows your specific situation, your other health conditions, and your medications. Work with them as a team. Now go out there, get yourself some beets, load up on those leafy greens, and enjoy some delicious fatty fish. Your blood vessels will thank you. Your heart will thank you. And 2 weeks from now, when you see those numbers coming down, you're going to thank yourself for taking action. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next video.